High Commander Du Jin stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council's main chamber. His deep blue uniform reflected the light of countless stars. He watched as ships from 100 different worlds moved through space like glowing fish in a cosmic ocean. "Commander, we have received another update about the human ship," said Captain Jaiho, walking into the chamber with a data tablet in his hand. Du Jin turned around slowly. "Just one ship. Are you certain?" "Yes, Commander. Earth is sending only one vessel, the HSS Determination." The news spread quickly through the chamber as more council members arrived for the emergency meeting. The room filled with whispers and confused looks. Representatives from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy took their seats around the large circular table. "This must be some kind of joke," said Admiral Kang, his scaled skin shifting colors with irritation. "We invite them to join the Galactic Alliance, and they send a single ship." Du Jin raised his hand for silence. "Let's not jump to conclusions. The humans have surprised us before." "Surprised us?" Admiral Kang laughed. "By still using combustion engines, by barely reaching their own moon." Captain Jaiho stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral, they did develop faster than light travel in just 10 years after we made first contact. That's the fastest any species has ever done it." The chamber grew quiet. It was true. Most species took at least 50 years to develop FTL technology after first contact. Some took centuries. "Still," said Council Member Subin, adjusting her floating chair, "one ship seems almost insulting. Even the youngest spacefaring races send a proper fleet for their first diplomatic mission." Du Jin walked to his seat at the head of the table. The soft blue light from below made his silver hair glow. "What do we know about this ship?" he asked. Captain Jaiho activated the room's holographic display. An image of a streamlined vessel appeared in the center of the chamber. It was elegant but simple, about the size of a standard cargo ship. The HSS Determination. Crew of 20. Armed with basic defensive weapons only. Nothing remarkable about its design. Jaiho paused. "Though our scans show some unusual power readings we can't explain." "Could they be hiding something?" asked Subin. Admiral Kang snorted. "What could they possibly hide from our technology? We're centuries ahead of them." "Perhaps," said Du Jin quietly, "that is exactly what they want us to think." The room fell silent again. Du Jin had been High Commander for over 200 years. When he got that particular look in his eyes, even the most arrogant council members paid attention. "Captain Jaiho," Du Jin said, "prepare a proper welcome for our human guests. Full honors, as we would give any new member of the Alliance." "But, Commander," protested Admiral Kang, "surely you don't think—" "I think," Du Jin interrupted, "that any species that can surprise us once can surprise us again." He looked around the chamber at each council member. "Remember, we invited them, and they accepted. The question isn't why they sent one ship. The question is, why do they think one ship is enough?" As the council members left the chamber, Du Jin turned back to the window. Somewhere out there, the HSS Determination was heading toward them. One ship, carrying 20 humans, coming to meet the most powerful alliance of civilizations in known space. He smiled slightly. This was either going to be the shortest diplomatic meeting in history, or something far more interesting than anyone expected. Captain Jaiho stayed behind, still studying the ship's image. "Should we be concerned, Commander?" "No," said Du Jin, "but we should be curious. Very curious indeed." The HSS Determination emerged from light-speed travel like a silver arrow. Its hull gleamed under the light of 3 suns as it approached the massive Galactic Council station. The station itself looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, its petals housing different alien species and diplomatic quarters. Inside the Determination's bridge, Captain Haenul Park stood with perfect posture, her dark uniform neat and crisp. She watched the station grow larger on the main screen. "Status report," she said calmly. "Science Officer Yoon." He looked up from her instruments. The station's defensive systems are active but not targeting us. They're scanning our ship thoroughly. Let them scan, Newell said with a slight smile. Engineer Tadwan made sure they'll see exactly what we want them to see. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Tadwan monitored his systems carefully. The ship's special modifications remained hidden behind layers of ordinary signals and readings. He smiled as he watched the alien scans pass harmlessly through their deception systems. The ship's communication system crackled to life. HS determination. This is Galactic Council Station Control. You are cleared for docking at Bay 17. Welcome to the Alliance. Communications Officer Min Su responded with perfect diplomatic courtesy. Thank you, Station Control. We are honored to accept your hospitality. As the Determination moved toward its assigned dock, dozens of alien ships moved out of its way. Some were massive warships, others were elegant diplomatic vessels. All of them dwarfed the human ship. Lieutenant Jai-yun, watching from her security station, noticed something interesting. Captain, the alien ships are keeping more distance than necessary. They're curious but cautious. Newell nodded. Good. That means High Commander Du Jin received our message about the isolation protocols we requested. They think it's because we're new to space travel and extra careful. The ship docked smoothly. Through the viewing windows, the crew could see a large welcoming party gathering in the station's reception area. Beings of all shapes and sizes stood in formal lines, wearing elaborate diplomatic uniforms. Everyone remembers their roles. Newell asked, looking at her bridge crew. They all nodded. They had trained for months for this mission. Every word, every gesture had to be perfect. Then let's go meet our hosts. The airlock cycled, and the human delegation stepped onto the station. Captain Newell led her team. Engineer Tadwan, Science Officer Yoon-hee, Communications Officer Min Su, and Lieutenant Jai-yun. They walked in perfect formation, their simple uniforms standing out among the ornate alien clothing. High Commander Du Jin stepped forward to greet them. His tall, elegant form towered over the humans, but Newell showed no sign of being impressed or intimidated. Captain Park, Du Jin said warmly, welcome to the heart of the Galactic Alliance. Newell bowed respectfully. Thank you, High Commander. Earth is grateful for your invitation. I must admit, said Admiral Kang, moving forward, we were surprised you came in just one ship. Newell's expression remained perfectly pleasant. Earth believes in efficiency, Admiral. We brought exactly what we needed. No more, no less. Science Officer Yoon. He noticed several council members exchange glances at this statement. She carefully recorded their reactions in her memory, just as she had been trained. Please, said Du Jin, gesturing toward the grand hallway. Join us for the welcome ceremony. We have much to discuss. As they walked, Engineer Taiwan looked up at the station's ceiling. His trained eye noticed the subtle signs of advanced technology hidden behind decorative panels. He kept his face neutral, but his mind was already working, comparing what he saw with their mission briefing. Captain Newell walked confidently beside Du Jin, looking for all the world like a newcomer honored to be in such grand company. Only her crew would have recognized the tiny smile at the corner of her mouth, the same smile she always had when a plan was working perfectly. The welcome ceremony stretched into its third hour. Communications Officer Min Su sat at the grand table, listening politely to yet another speech about galactic unity. Around him, alien diplomats from 100 worlds ate strange foods and made careful conversation. While Min Su kept the council members busy with diplomatic talk, the other crew members carried out their real work. In a quiet corner of the Great Hall, Engineer Taiwan pretended to admire a floating sculpture. His special contact lenses recorded everything he saw. The sculpture's power source was putting out strange energy readings, readings that shouldn't have been there. Beautiful piece, isn't it? Said a voice behind him. Taiwan turned to see Admiral Kang. The engineer bowed slightly. Yes, Admiral. The way it floats is fascinating. We don't have anything like this on Earth. Perhaps we could arrange a trade, Kang said. Your ship's power system has some interesting features we'd like to study. Oh. Taiwan kept his face friendly but confused. It's just a standard fusion drive. Kang's scales shifted color slightly. Of course. My mistake. Across the room, Science Officer Yun. He was having an equally interesting conversation with a group of alien scientists. They were explaining the station's defensive systems, trying to impress the primitive human. The shields can stop any known weapon, one scientist boasted. Yun-hee nodded with appropriate awe, but her enhanced hearing picked up something else, a low hum coming from the walls, a hum that matched certain frequencies described in their mission briefing. Lieutenant Jai-yun walked the edges of the room, playing the part of a security officer checking on her captain. Her careful eyes noticed how some council members moved differently from others. Some had a slight delay in their movements, as if they were receiving commands rather than moving naturally. Captain Hae-Newell sat at the high table with Commander Du-jin, perfectly playing her role as an honored guest. But her mind was analyzing everything her crew discovered. Each piece of information confirmed their worst fears. Tell me, Captain, Du-jin said quietly, what does Earth hope to gain from joining the Alliance? Hae-Newell smiled. Knowledge, friendship, trade, the usual benefits of cooperation. And you believe one ship is enough to establish such connections. Quality matters more than quantity, Commander. Earth believes in sending its best. Do-jin studied her face carefully. You know, Captain, some council members think you're hiding something. Hiding something. Hae-Newell laughed lightly. What could we possibly hide from such advanced civilizations? Before Du-jin could answer, Yun-hee appeared at the table. Captain, I apologize for interrupting, but it's time for our scheduled ship maintenance check. Hae-Newell nodded and turned to Du-jin. Please excuse me, Commander. New ship, new systems. We have to be careful. As they walked back to their ship, Hae-Newell's crew shared quick glances. They all knew what the maintenance check really meant. It was time to analyze their findings. In the secure briefing room of the Determination, they compared notes. The infection is worse than we thought, Yun-hee said quietly. The hum in the walls, it's their control signal. Taiwan nodded. The power readings are all wrong. They're not using the technology they should be using. At least 30% of the council members show signs. Jai-yun added. The way they move, the delay in their responses. Hae-Newell looked at the data on their secure screens. Earth's intelligence had been right. The Nexus had already begun its work here. Send the coded message to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them we were right. The Council needs our help, whether they know it or not. Captain Hae-Newell sat alone in her quarters aboard the HSS Determination. The room was dark except for the soft glow of distant stars through her window. A small light on her desk began blinking, the signal for an incoming encrypted message from Earth Command. She pressed her hand against the scanner, and the message appeared in the air before her. The words made her heart beat faster. They're here. More than we feared. Proceed with extreme caution. There was more. Data streamed across her screen. Reports from Earth's other hidden observers across the galaxy. The Nexus infection wasn't just in the Council. It had spread to 12 major space stations and at least 40 worlds. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. Enter, she said. Science Officer Yun. He stepped into the room. Captain, we've finished analyzing today's scans. She stopped when she saw Hae-Newell's face. Earth Command sent confirmation. Yes, it's worse than we thought. Hae-Newell stood up and walked to the window. How much time do we have? Yun-hee's face was serious. Based on the infection patterns we've seen, maybe 3 days before the Nexus completes its integration into the Council's main systems. 3 days. Hae-Newell closed her eyes for a moment. That's not much time to save an entire civilization. The ship's communication system buzzed softly. Captain, Min-Su's voice came through. Admiral Kang is requesting permission to visit the ship. He says he wants to discuss trade agreements. Hae-Newell and Yoon-hee shared a look. They both knew what Kang really wanted, to get closer to the Determination's true systems. "Tell him we would be honored," Hae-Newell said. "In 2 hours." After Min-soo signed off, Yoon-hee spoke quietly. "Are you sure that's wise, Captain? Our scans showed he's one of the infected." "Exactly." Hae-Newell turned from the window. "We need to know how far the infection has progressed. Engineer Taiwan can get readings when he's on board." In the engine room, Taiwan was already preparing. He adjusted the ship's power output to hide their real capabilities. The Nexus was ancient and clever, but Earth had learned its tricks the hard way. Lieutenant Jae-yun's voice came through the ship's system. "Captain, you should see this. The Council ships are moving." Hae-Newell hurried to the bridge. On the main screen, she watched as Council warships changed their positions around the station. They were subtle about it, but the pattern was clear. They were surrounding the Determination. "They suspect something," Jae-yun said. "No." Hae-Newell's voice was firm. "They're afraid of something. The Nexus knows humans are different. It doesn't understand why, but it knows we're a threat." Communications Officer Min-soo looked up from his station. "Captain, I've been monitoring their internal communications. Some of the uninfected council members are starting to notice strange things. They're asking questions." "Good." Hae-Newell sat in her captain's chair. "The more they question, the better our chances when we have to act." The bridge crew worked quietly, each person knowing their role in what was to come. They had trained for years for this mission. Earth had fought the Nexus before, had almost fallen to it. But humans had learned, had grown stronger. Now they had a chance to save others from the same fate. 2 hours until Admiral Kang arrives, Min-soo reminded them. "Prepare everything," Hae-Newell ordered. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth now. We're fighting for every free mind in the galaxy." As her crew moved to their tasks, Hae-Newell thought about all the worlds that had fallen to the Nexus before. "Not this time," she promised silently. This time, humanity had come prepared. The grand dining hall of the Galactic Council Station sparkled with light from 1,000 floating crystals. High Commander Du Jin had arranged a formal dinner to honor the human visitors. Captain Hae-Newell and her crew sat among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Engineer Ta-One watched Admiral Kang carefully. The Admiral's visit to the Determination earlier that day had confirmed their worst fears. His body showed all the signs of deep Nexus infection. "Tell us about Earth's defense systems," Kang said, his scales shimmering. "Surely you must have impressive weapons to feel so secure with just one ship." Hae-Newell smiled politely. "Earth believes the best defense is understanding, Admiral. We prefer to learn about our neighbors rather than prepare to fight them." Science Officer Yoon-hee, sitting nearby, noticed how several council members twitched at the word understanding. Their movements were too quick, too similar, like puppets pulled by the same string. "A wise approach," said Du Jin. He was one of the few who showed no signs of infection, though some might call it naive. "Sometimes naive people see things others miss," Hae-Newell replied. She turned to a council member who had been quiet all evening. "Don't you agree, Representative Song?" Song looked startled at being addressed. Yes, of course." But his eyes darted to Admiral Kang before he answered. Lieutenant Jae-yun touched her captain's arm, their silent signal. More council ships had moved into position around the station. They were running out of time. Communications Officer Min-soo was deep in conversation with a group of younger council members. "Earth's history is full of stories about hidden threats," he said carefully. "About things that take control of people without others noticing." "Fascinating," said one young diplomat. "We have similar stories. In fact, lately some of us have noticed strange things." Admiral Kang interrupted loudly. "More wine for our human guests." Hae-Newell watched as servants rushed forward. She noticed how their movements were perfectly synchronized. Too perfect. The Nexus infection had reached even the station's service staff. "Captain," Du Jin said quietly, I've been meaning to ask, why did Earth really send just one ship? For a moment, Newell considered telling him the truth. Du Jin was smart, observant, and still uninfected, but she could see Kang watching them closely. "Commander," she replied, equally quiet, "sometimes one is all you need." Suddenly, Science Officer Yoon, his small sensor device, buzzed silently in her pocket. The Nexus control signal had spiked. Around the table, several council members stiffened slightly. "Excuse me," Newell stood smoothly. "I need to check on our ship's systems." "Now." Kang's voice was sharp. "During dinner." "Just a routine check," Newell smiled. "Earth ships are very particular about maintenance." As her crew rose to follow her, Du Jin caught her eye. His expression said he knew something wasn't right. Newell gave him the slightest nod, a promise to explain later, if there was time. They walked quickly through the station's corridors toward their ship. Behind them, they could hear movement. Too many footsteps, too well coordinated. "They're dropping their act," Jai-yun said softly. "Good," Newell replied, "because we're about to drop ours." Lieutenant Jai-yun was checking the determination security systems when the alarm sounded. The screen showed an unauthorized access attempt at the ship's rear airlock. She activated the camera feed and saw 3 figures in council maintenance uniforms trying to bypass the lock. "Captain," she called through the ship's communication system, "we have visitors." Captain Newell's voice came back immediately. "Show me." The security feed appeared on screens throughout the ship. The maintenance workers moved with unnatural precision. Their fingers typed codes in perfect unison. "Nexus Infiltration Unit," Engineer Ta-won said, watching from his station. "They're trying to access our main computer." Newell's voice was calm but firm. "Activate Defense Protocol 3. A soft blue light pulsed through the ship's corridors. The infiltration unit stopped typing. They looked at each other, then resumed their work with even greater speed. "They sense something's different about our systems," Science Officer Yoon-hee reported. "The Nexus is adapting its approach." Suddenly, the ship's main communication screen lit up. High Commander Du Jin's face appeared. "Captain Park," he said, "our security systems detect unusual energy readings from your ship. Please explain." Before Newell could answer, Admiral Kang pushed into view. His scales were now a deep red color. "They're hiding something," Kang hissed. "The humans have been lying to us from the start." "Not lying, Admiral," Newell replied. "Just waiting to see who we could trust." She nodded to Communications Officer Min-soo, who pressed a series of buttons. The security feed from the airlock began playing on all council communication channels. Everyone on the station could now see the infiltration unit's inhuman movements. Du Jin's eyes widened. "What am I seeing, Captain?" "The truth, Commander. Your council has been infiltrated by a parasitic entity we call the Nexus. It takes over bodies and minds. Earth has faced it before." The revelation caused chaos in the council chamber. Some members began shouting. Others sat completely still. Too still. "Lies," Kang roared, but his voice had changed. It echoed strangely, as if multiple voices spoke at once. "Commander Du Jin," Newell said urgently, "look at him. Look at how many of your people move in perfect unison. That's not natural. That's not them anymore." Du Jin stepped away from Kang, his eyes now seeing what had been in front of him for months. "How many?" he asked quietly. "About 30% of your council," Yoon-hee answered. "The infection spreads through direct contact and through your computer systems." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. The infiltration unit had stopped trying to break in. Instead, they stood perfectly straight, their faces blank. "They're activating," Jai-yun warned. "All infected hosts are synchronizing." Around the station, infected council members began to move. Their movements were mechanical, purposeful. They headed for critical systems and control rooms. Now we know why Earth sent just one ship, Du Jin said, understanding finally dawning on his face. You're not here to join the council. You're here to save it. Hanul nodded. Yes. And now we need your help, Commander. We have a way to stop the Nexus, but we'll need uninfected council members to help us use it. Whatever you need, Du Jin said firmly. Just tell us what to do. High Commander Du Jin stood on the bridge of the HSS Determination, watching as Engineer Taiwan revealed the ship's true nature. Hidden panels slid open along the walls, showing complex equipment unlike anything the Council had ever seen. For 3 years, Earth's best scientists worked on this technology, Taiwan explained. The Determination isn't just a ship. It's a delivery system for the only weapon that can stop the Nexus. Through the ship's windows, they could see chaos spreading across the station. Infected council members were taking control of key systems. Emergency lights flashed everywhere. Our security forces are holding the critical areas, Du Jin reported. But we're losing ground. The infected ones are too coordinated, too strong. Captain Haynewell nodded. The Nexus gives them enhanced strength and perfect coordination, but that's also their weakness. She turned to Science Officer Yoonhee. Show them. Yoonhee activated a holographic display. It showed a complex web of energy patterns. This is the Nexus Control Network. See how all infected hosts connect to the same central points. Break that connection, and we free them all at once. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Du Jin asked, though his voice held more curiosity than anger. The Nexus can access the memories of anyone it infects, Lieutenant Jai-yun explained. If we had warned you openly, it would have known how to stop us. Suddenly, the ship shook. Admiral Kang's voice came through the communication system, distorted and multiple-toned. We see what you're trying to do. We will not allow it. Through the windows, they watched Council warships move into attack positions, but they didn't fire. They won't risk damaging the station, Communications Officer Min-soo said. The Nexus needs the Council's infrastructure intact. Captain Haynewell turned to her engineer. Taiwan, how long to deploy the quantum field? 10 minutes to full power, he replied, his fingers moving quickly over the controls. But we need to be at the exact center of the station. The field has to reach every infected host at the same time. Du Jin stepped forward. My security teams will clear you a path to the central hub. But what about the infected? Won't this weapon harm them? No, Haynewell said firmly. That's why it took Earth 3 years to develop it. The quantum field breaks the Nexus control without harming the host bodies. Everyone infected will survive. More alarms sounded. The infected council members were breaking through the security barriers. They had minutes at most. Now you understand, Haynewell said to Du Jin. Why Earth sent just one ship. The Determination was built for this single purpose, to save not just the Council, but every world the Nexus has infiltrated. Du Jin looked at the human captain with new respect. You could have built a fleet of warships with this technology. Instead, you built a ship of healing. Earth remembers its own battle with the Nexus, Haynewell replied. We lost too many people trying to fight it with weapons. We learned that saving lives is better than taking them. The ship's engines hummed to life. On the screen, they could see uninfected Council security teams moving into position, ready to protect the Determination as it made its final move. All systems ready, Captain, Taiwan reported. Haynewell looked at her crew, then at Commander Du Jin. It's time. Let's go save your people. The HSS Determination moved slowly through the central corridor of the Galactic Council Station. Security teams led by Commander Du Jin fought to keep the path clear as infected council members tried to stop them. 3 minutes to reach the central hub. Engineer Taiwan reported from his station. The ship's special systems hummed with power, ready to deploy. Captain Haynewell watched the screens as Lieutenant Jai-yun coordinated with the uninfected security teams. Status of the quantum field. Charged and ready, Science Officer Yoonhee answered. But we'll only get one chance at this. The field has to hit every part of the station at exactly the same time. Suddenly, Admiral Kang's voice boomed through the station's communication system. When he spoke, 1,000 voices spoke with him. You cannot stop us. We are eternal. We are perfect. We are unity. No, Hay-Newell said firmly. You are a prison, and we're here to free your captives. The determination reached the central hub. Through the windows, they could see infected council members climbing the walls, moving with impossible speed toward the ship. Now, Todd 1. Hay-Newell ordered. The engineer's fingers flew over his controls. The ship's hidden panels opened fully, revealing rings of blue light that began to spin. Quantum field charging, he called out. 10 seconds. Communications officer Min-Su's voice was urgent. Captain, the infected are breaching the outer hull. 5 seconds. Ta 1 shouted. The infected were almost at the bridge windows, their faces blank, moving as one. 3, 2, 1. A pulse of soft blue light exploded from the determination. It moved like a gentle wave, passing through walls and bodies. Everywhere it touched, infected council members stopped moving. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, one by one, the infected began to fall. Not violently, but softly, like people waking from a deep sleep. Their movements were their own again. Field strength at 100%, Yoon-hee reported. The Nexus control signal is gone. Completely gone. Through the windows, they watched as council members helped each other stand. Many were crying, touching their faces, moving their hands as if amazed to control them again. Admiral Kang lay on the floor near the ship, his scales returning to their natural color. Du Jin helped him sit up. What happened? Kang asked in his own voice, just his voice, not the 1,000 voices of before. You were imprisoned, Du Jin said gently. The humans freed you. Hay-Newell's communication screen lit up with messages from across the galaxy. The quantum field had worked exactly as designed, spreading through the Nexus network to every infected world and station. Everywhere, people were waking up. Captain, Min-Su called out, we're receiving thank you messages from 37 worlds. Hay-Newell smiled. Send them Earth's response. You're welcome. We remember what it's like to fight alone. No one should have to do that. Later, in the council chamber, Du Jin addressed the recovered council members. Today we learned why Earth sent just one ship. They didn't come to show their power. They came to share their wisdom. They didn't build weapons of war. They built tools of healing. He turned to Hay-Newell and her crew. The Galactic Alliance owes Earth a debt we can never repay. There is no debt, Hay-Newell replied. Earth remembers its own battles, its own losses. We had a chance to prevent that pain for others. That's all we needed. As the council chambers filled with applause, Hay-Newell looked at her crew, the 20 humans who had just helped save a galaxy. Sometimes, she thought, one ship was more than enough. You just had to fill it with the right people, fighting for the right reasons.